A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Films I'm Willing to Talk About Again. And so, what we got here for this exact occasion is something a bit different. Now, I have talked a bit about animation films, and I've also talked a bit about various films that mostly cater to the youth, because in that exact moment, there was a particular point in my exact generation where, at my age level, those were the kind of movies I tend to enjoy the most and rewatch the most. Such movies I've enjoyed like Hot Wheels Highway 35 World Race, Madagascar, Rescue Heroes, and we certainly can't forget about the Ghostbusters films. But that's just to name a few here. Of course, there was one in particular that actually was rather intriguing compared to most. And while it wasn't entirely appropriate given how long ago I first saw it, Dragonheart from 1996 was certainly a unique pick out there. It had itself a bunch of different things to offer, mainly with the story. It centers around a knight, played by Dennis Quaid, whom unfortunately is unable to get the best of what his village would have to offer, and also, given his line of work, he isn't entirely impressed by the results of it. And some other things have also begun to take place, including a battle between knights and dragons. One apparently comes across him and actually speaks to him. Yep, you heard me right. Sean Connery is basically the role of the dragon whom is given the name Draco. And keep in mind, this was a while before the Draco that we remember from Harry Potter. But the thing is though, this was more or less a predecessor, or even considered a preconception of the name Draco entirely. The name, of course, was basically from the constellation up in the sky, known as Draco. Yeah, if you're familiar with all kinds of star constellations that occurred up there, mainly the ones that were named after various figures of mythology. There, of course, was even the famous North Star, Polaris. But all that is basically a totally different subject compared to what I have to offer here. Like I said though, they cross paths with each other at one point at some time, and eventually form a certain bond with each other. They begin to go on a series of sprees, basically. A center of impressment in which that Bowen, the knight, basically, actually sets up scenes where he actually kills Draco, even though it actually isn't considered real. However, the village totally buy it. And every time that they manage to succeed, Bowen actually does get a plentiful series of rewards, which is considered impressive even by today's standards. But as we know, it's the typical con artist play that only goes so well for so long. Because the knight and the dragon, while they might have a good bond with each other and have themselves a lot of fun in the process with these different escapades, it only goes so well. David Thewlis actually plays a certain king. A king whom was in fact a former student whom basically was taught by Bowen. I guess we can't consider that a coincidence by any means. The fact that Sir Einon, E-I-N-O-N as it's spelled, he actually used to be a student of Bowen, but in the years since, he became the king of a certain village. And this one in particular was a bit tougher to deal with. Because as we know, each king has his own army to deal with, through every village, through every city imaginable. Especially knowing the Middle Ages, they were quite a big point in history. And one might say that one king in particular was not very happy about these things. Because, shockingly, it turns out to be one heck of a turnaround. A way to turn the tide, basically, between the bond itself that Draco and Bowen have established. Basically speaking, Einon actually gave a portion of his heart to Draco. And basically, that was a whole considerable thing that actually allowed him to have his life saved. But unfortunately, when the heart is given away to a dragon or another type of being of this sort, according to this film's plot, if one dies, then the other is sure to follow. But, believe it or not, Sir Einon actually does have a very good reason to be put to shame. Or, in this case, be put to death. Because by the end of the movie, what basically happens is that Einon ends up going rogue and basically trying everything to stop Bowen, and by all means, his army just doesn't seem to let up. That's when Draco ends up coming up with a convincing idea. The idea to actually have him killed in order to pretty much sever the connectivity between him and Einon, killing them both. So, basically, while it is hard for Bowen to do, to kill off a good friend of his, a friend that actually helped him very much in his life, this unfortunately only goes so well for him. And I will say, this was quite an emotional point in the film where it wasn't entirely something that we were meant to anticipate, but it's that one of those kind of things that where a sacrifice actually is necessary in order to have a better outcome in life. By killing Draco, Einon is defeated, and the armies of his are basically collapsed, rendering them unable to act accordingly towards Bowen. And so, this inevitably helps set Bowen free. By all means. The deaths of both these people, both good and bad, have basically allowed for total neutral control for the land itself. And Bowen is, again, set free as a direct result of this whole thing that went down. Overall, I will say, this was a good movie. Not something I have too much worth discussing. Mostly short, simple, and sweet bits, which at least is helpful given the fact that I have made videos that were over 25 minutes in length. And so, in the end, I feel like it all works out here with a good 7 minutes worth of time. And if you want to see more, go down to my channel to make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side.
Whatever I want, I usually get, and I'm thinking I want you.